Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this panel today, this conversation that we are so excited to have titled Naturally Ever After, Can Stories and Images About Nature Inspire Us to Rewrite Our Future? My name is Savannah Sellers. I'm a correspondent and anchor at NBC News, and I am joined by two people who are very accomplished in the field of trying to help us care by these images that we create, and we're going to show a little bit of that in just a moment. First, I want to introduce them. We have Charlie Anneberg Weingarten, founder of Explore.org. Give it up for Charlie. And we also have Dorothy Fortenberry. She is a television writer and producer, and specifically we're going to kind of dive in on this show called Extrapolations, which she was an executive producer on as well as writer. There we go. So thank you both so much for joining us today, and I want to start by, like I said, playing some of these clips to kind of establish exactly what it is, these images that you both have had a hand in creating to kind of set us up. So first, Charlie, we will start with a little clip from Explore.org and then have you talk a little bit about that. If we can play that clip, please.
Hi, my name is Charlie, and welcome to Explore.org, the home of the world's largest live nature network. We want you to fall in love with the world again.
There we go. So, Charlie, tell us just a little bit about, and some of you may have actually seen, because right down the hall from us in the Zen Den, many Explore.org cameras are playing throughout the day. Go check it out if you haven't. But tell us about the origin of Explore.org, and we're going to get a lot more into this throughout the conversation, but just explain some of those images we saw in the context of this conversation.
Well, first of all, thank you for coming. And it's kind of strange being in this room with the bright lights because next door is the Zen Den. So I feel like you dragged the big bear out of hibernation into a room where it's like, whoa, much more comfortable to speak in there. But, you know, it was interesting seeing those clips. Think of Explore.org almost as the Netflix of live nature, except we're celebrating purity and it's free to people. The thesis of Explore almost is you take care of what you love. And by falling in love with the world, you become a better steward. And what we've created is almost the world's largest live nature network. I don't like using the word world's largest. It almost sounds egotistical, but a really beautiful, impactful live nature network that really allows you to see magic every single day. So what you saw were recorded clips. Yesterday morning, if you were just sitting in the Zen room, was extraordinary. It's the sunrise here, so it's a sunset in Africa, and there were 3 rhinos that show up to a watering hole. You would never see this. And so every day it offers a glimpse into kind of the soul of our planet, and you get to celebrate magic. And so, you know, I encourage anyone to come aboard. I like to think of myself as I'm just a tram driver to the world's largest virtual zoo without bars. And I try to expose you beauty and lay the breadcrumbs for you to do the rest that you want.
Another thing you called yourself when we were talking prior to this is the DJ of nature. I like that one too.
Yeah, if you go to Explore, we have a really beautiful community. That's really, I think, the most unique part of Explore. And if you ever see DJ of Nature, that's me.
So Dorothy, I love the counterpoint here because I think kind of what Charlie's just described is these images that make you love nature, make you want to care more, hopefully anyway. With Extrapolations, it's kind of the imagery that instills some fear, some concern, and hopefully, I would say, propels you to action. Tell us, actually, before you tell us, let's watch a clip from Extrapolations. I believe this is episode 4 we're watching.
Yes, episode 4.
Madam President, I'm sure Jonathan has told you about the bear and the lion. And maybe he's told you that what I'm doing is a reckless experiment that can only be done once.
That's right, because it is. Okay, look, you don't know what's going to happen. Even if you get it right, what'll happen to the ozone layer? You don't know. What'll happen to the oceans? You don't know. The 2 billion people you say you're trying to save, you're about to drop another climate volatility event right on their heads. How does that...
But the real reckless experiment is the one civilization has been running.
Nobody was trying to change the climate. We didn't even think that we had that capacity. We didn't know better, but we do now.
And yet, human behavior doesn't change. The sky is easier to re-engineer than the human brain, John.
Exactly. And if you tell that greedy monkey brain it's cooled off and everything's okay, it's going to say, give me a little bit more. Just let me burn a little bit more. Just let me mortgage a little more of the children's future so that I can make sure I can juice this quarterly balance sheet. I just need that one. It's Gita. Even if you got all of the chemical interactions right, if you got the dispersal pattern right, the problem here is bigger than the heat of the sun, Gita. It's the way we see the world. And you alone up in the plane with this technology, this is not going to solve the problem.
Yeah, so says the problem.
Okay, so again, sort of anxiety inducing, but what I love about that clip, having seen the whole show, what I love about that clip is it has a lot to do with what we're discussing now, rewiring some of the way that we're thinking about things, hopefully impacting human behavior. But a lot of the show is just a lot of images that honestly are looking frighteningly current in terms of climate change. Tell us a little bit about this show. By the way, what an incredible cast also.
Oh my gosh, insane, bananas, incredible cast. I could just list them for the hour and then we would be done with the talk.
Meryl Streep, Sienna Miller, I'll start.
Yeah, Daveed Diggs, Tahar Rahim. But no, Extrapolations is an 8-episode anthology-ish. So there are 8 interconnected episodes. If you follow them in order 1 through 8, you'll see some sort of season-long arcs emerge and characters reappear. But every episode really is taking on a different aspect of climate change in a different year in the future, in a different country. So we're trying to get as global a sense as we can of the near future. Sometimes when we talk about the future in television or in novels, it's this like super distant thing. It's like the future, and it's like the year 9 million, and everyone's in like a spacesuit. And we're trying to talk about the future like, you know, if you have little kids when your kids are a little older, if you are, you know, in college when you're like early middle age, like it's not that far away from now. And we really wanted to bring it close and to sort of look at some things. And, you know, you were saying the images reminded you of today. That was a real thing that we talked about during making the show is, you know, are we doing things that are too extreme, or are we actually showing a 2037 that looks like 2023 might? In our premiere episode, it's set in 2037. There's a part in New York, and there's a forest fire, and the skies are really hazy, and the sun is red, and people are living their lives, but when you look out the window, it looks like New York City has been blanketed in forest fire smoke. And it was really wild. Somebody, a viewer online, just posted an image from the show and an image out her window. And she was just like, oh, we're living in Extrapolations. And I was like, yeah. So it's a show with several different casts of characters. Part of the reason we have such an amazing group of actors is we were able to have 8 different stories. So you meet someone, you hang out with them, you hear their story, and then you move to the next place and hear the next story.
Yeah, I got the chills watching episodes 1 and 2, and they were called Orange Days, when the sky outside is a certain way that certain kids who grew up under climate change aren't able to go outside. Just things that really are closer to our reality now.
Yeah.
What's it been like for you to watch some of what you created come true in the worst way, frankly?
Yeah, it's been a couple different ways. I mean, when we were first writing episodes 1 and 2, it was the fall of 2020, a notoriously calm time for all of us. And there was a forest fire in Northern California, and I live in Southern California, and it was that thing where you look out the window and the sun is red. And so I was writing about something that felt very close to home. My own kid, they would put on the protocol where you couldn't play outside at recess Like they would just have a thing that they have in LA where, you know, you sit and you watch The Incredibles or whatever at recess instead of playing. So in some ways it was upsetting, but, and this really echoes something I think I've heard a lot of the speakers say, it felt better to go to work every day and be working on it than to not be. Like, climate change was happening whether or not I was working on extrapolations. That forest fire was burning whether or not I was working on extrapolations. And the days I didn't have work were the days that I got anxious and felt scared. The days where I could go, oh, I have to look at like 6 different costume designs. Great. You know, I have something to do and I'm trying to move this conversation forward to raise awareness, to sort of change the way we talk and think about it, the issue.
Absolutely. Something pretty cool that came out of the 3 of us talking prior was hearing kind of an unknown connection between the 2 of you that none of us knew about, including you guys. Because first of all, in addition to this show that we've been discussing that is anxiety-inducing, Dorothy also was a writer for The Handmaid's Tale. So first of all, you okay?
Yeah. Laid back comedy about a group of girlfriends. They wear matching outfits.
And during that time, sort of antidote to your anxiety, tell us what it was.
Yeah, so this is the fall of 2016, the only calmer time than the fall of 2020. And I'm writing season 1 of The Handmaid's Tale. And because of the way our office is set up, the building that we're renting, there's a television that's 24 hours Fox News right outside our office door. So every single time you go to the bathroom, you get a granola bar, you're just walking by 24/7 election coverage and then walking back into the Handmaid's Tale room. And then so we were all incredibly stressed out. And then one day at lunch, my friend Lila, who was a co-writer, came in and she was like, guys, there's bears. And she just brought her laptop out and we were all just watching these bears try to catch salmon. And we were so happy, and we were just like, oh, will they get it? Like, and we each got like a favorite bear to root for. We're like, I want that bear to get the salmon, and like, you know, we were so joyful for just like a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It was the first time we had all just had a moment of bliss. Was watching these bears. So to find out that you are responsible for the bears was like a huge celebrity moment for me, because we really needed the bears, is what I'm trying to say, in that room.
And on our culture, I was like, well, I love The Handmaid's Tale. Like, oh, fabulous. What is that your hope, that that's what people feel and find and derive from what you do?
You know, Explore is a really unique place, and purity is our currency to begin with. So when I'm watching extrapolations and it's about quarterly reports or this and driving things, there's no gimmicks. Nature unfolds. And it's really about developing those emotional connections, but it's also, I know here at Aspen Ideas, another big theme is health. And to me, it's an antidote to stress. It's nature as healing. We have, again, a really beautiful community, and it's really amazing the letters we get of people who are sickly, who don't have the ability to be in places like Aspen, who connect to nature and heal. And so it's incredible, and especially the bears that really affected you. It's now the beginning of bear season. It runs through October. They return each year, and so people develop these really strong emotional connections to each bear. And it actually gets quite competitive. Like the love of the bear and stuff, we could get into it. So that's the highest, honor, and I was, deeply flattered. We don't have big marketing teams and metrics, so it's really people write in. So when I heard that, it really, that's our currency, is that feedback.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the competition. Brackets, Fat Bear Week, what that is. Tell us.
Yes, sure. So does anyone know what anyways, so explore.org. There you go. So at the end of bear season, it started. How many years ago did it start, Candace? Fat Bear Week? 11 years. This competition has emerged. It's called Fat Bear Week, and it is literally what March Madness is to basketball. This is to the nature world. And what happens is brackets are created, and people vote on what bear has become the largest, the fattest. And it's funny, but it also means that nature is working. So it's an incredible success story, because for the bears to hibernate, they need to get fat. So it's really, it's incredible, and it's become so large that last season our polls were stuffed. I mean, people are so passionate that 50,000 votes emerged for kind of the smaller female bear. And I was like, what's going on? And like overnight, and it was on like CNN, Stephen Colbert.
We covered it.
Yeah,
I covered extensively.
Yeah,
was there like election hacking?
We had election.
There was election fraud for fat.
We had election.
Exactly.
We literally had election fraud.
Interference.
So it's
Can't trust anyone.
But it's really become a beautiful thing, and then people are diehard, and they have their brackets and voting, and it's called Fat Bear Week, and it's at the end of October before the bears get ready to hibernate.
Mark your calendars. Really, it is a fun thing to be part of. Also, let's kind of rewind and talk about Explore.org, how it works. I mean, you have these cameras in places that it's very difficult to get to. We talked through some of the ones that are particularly difficult to install and then to run. You have volunteers who are doing that. How does it work? How do you do what you do?
Well, I'm going to point this gentleman out there, Joe, who should raise his hand. He's really the maverick who sets everything up, and afterwards he would love to answer questions. But each location, I should almost let Joe speak here, poses a unique set of challenges. So Alaska, or we're a mile down, and it's cables, solar, generators, weather, wind, animals. I know that Joe told a story last season of climbing up Dumpling Mountain to be chased by a few bears that are coming out of hibernation. So just like humans, when they're feeding the salmon, like us, when you're fed, you're kind of more relaxed. But a hungry bear coming out of hibernation, when you're up several thousand feet and the wind is blowing, is a whole different thing. Or Joe sent me a photo the other day. One of our cams is 100 miles off the coast of North Carolina on Cape Fear, and there's all these sharks. It's our shark cam and barracudas, and the guys down there, trying to set up the camera. These sharks are all circling. So there's definitely a lot of challenges, especially technical, but we've been blessed to have just really a dedicated staff that sees the impact. And it's important to know that the majority of our cameras are also connected to nonprofit organizations who are really leaders in their field, and it gives them an opportunity to have a voice and educate people as well. So it's a great team. And like I said, after he's sitting outside, talk to Joe. He'll give you some great stories, because he just got back from Alaska right now with some fun ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool when you think about there's these live feeds. If you haven't been to Explore.org, check it out, because they are tops of mountains, under the ocean, like you said, sharks circling. It's really incredible to see. Dorothy, I want to go back to something that you said at the beginning about the timeline in which extrapolations is set, because at least for me, that did bring about certain feelings, because it is so near to the future. Thinking about if I were to have kids, this is, along that timeline. How important was that decision? And was there a goal in mind with the show kind of related to that in terms of inspiring people to really start to think about things?
Yeah, absolutely. So the creator of the show is Scott Z. Burns, who made a little film called Contagion, which we all watched very recently. He also was a producer on An Inconvenient Truth. And when he came to me to talk to me about extrapolations, what he said was, he said, look, I made An Inconvenient Truth and I thought it would fix it. Like, I thought all people needed to see was this stuff that's happening, and then we'd be done, and that would sort of solve the problem. And he was like, I will be the first to admit, like, it clearly didn't. Like, we're where we are now. Climate change, we're in a 1.3 degree raised, climate raised world. And, what do we do differently? So when he came to me, he said, I want to do a show that's not a documentary, that is about imaginary people, that is a TV drama, and that takes place in a near future. And that was really exciting to me, because I think one of the hard things about climate change storytelling, one of the hard things with the climate change storytelling is there's not very much of it. Right? There's 600 new TV shows a year. Almost none of them mention climate change at all in any way. That's bananas. We're all living in a world that has been climate changed. It's crazy how little climate change storytelling there is. Another thing about climate change storytelling is the most successful practitioners of it are largely people paid by the guy who bought this building. Like, they're telling a story that it is unclear or, vague. There's a climate change storytelling of like, who knows if it's happening? And we lived in that world for 20 years and we didn't do anything because we heard a story that we didn't know enough to make decisions. So now we're here and we're trying to make a TV show in 8 episodes, and we talk about how do we make it feel future-y enough that it's fun, that when you tune in, it doesn't feel like the news, that there's some excitement. We have a technology in episode 2 where it translates whale sound into human speech, so a character can talk back and forth with a whale. It's delightful. It's sort of, the most extreme version of explore.org, right? Like you're hanging out very close to nature and getting to interview. So that, that's a fun thing we get to have about being a future show, but we didn't want it to be a future that felt dismissible. A future that felt far off. So we picked a near horizon. We knew it would debut around 2022. It ended up coming out in 2023. And 15 years in the future was 2037. So our first episode is 2037. And then over the course of the 8 episodes, we end up going to 2070. So it spans, some time, but when I talked to production designers, when I talked to our costume designer, our props designer, I kept saying the distance between episode 1 of Extrapolations and today is the same as the distance between today and the movie The Hangover. So don't make it look too weird, right? Like if you watch The Hangover, you're not like, what a quirky period piece with their unusual hats, it feels pretty close. And so we were aiming for that sort of emotional experience where every once in a while you'd be like, oh, weird, oh, that's their phone, oh, cool, oh, weird, okay, I get it. Or like, that's how they wear pants now. But most of the time it feels pretty close to home. And that was really important because you asked what we wanted people to experience. And I mean, you mentioned feeling anxiety. I think that's very common around climate change. I think there is a lot to worry about. Climate grief is a very real thing, but we really didn't want to drive people into a cul-de-sac of despair, right? Like we didn't want to just put them in a place where they were so sad and then leave them and be like, goodbye, eat some chips. We wanted to bring them to a place and then say, you can take action. We are not currently in 2037, and every episode features characters who make choices. We are always showing people, regardless of their level of power and authority, regardless of their level of wealth, who are making choices in the situations they are in. The clip we saw is from episode 4. It's, I would say, our most at the top of the power pyramid episode. You have the president, you have a billionaire, and they're debating geoengineering. That's what that conversation is about. And it's reminded me of a lot of conversations I've heard at Aspen, which is, do we fight climate change through a sort of spiritual revolution, which is what Ed Norton is saying, is basically we have to re-understand how we imagine profit and progress, and we have to look beyond just a quarterly balance sheet. We have to look beyond constant growth to understand our relationship to the planet, or the point of view that Indira Varma has, which is like, it's just a technology. Just put stuff in the sky. Like, it's very hard to have a spiritual revolution. We won't get there in time. Yeah. We should geoengineer and fill the sky with chemicals, and you can have your spiritual revolution later, once we've cooled off the planet. And that's a live debate, right? That's a question that I think is worth, talking about, arguing about. And so both of those characters have made choices, but we also have episodes where the choices are, about trusting a new friend, or about taking a chance, on believing in somebody, or, making a community. But at every point, there's a choice that a character can make, and we really, I don't know if we did it, but we really wanted to leave our audience in an emotional place where they felt empowered to do something, and especially to reach out to other people. That this is not a problem that can be solved by any individual. This is a problem that is a collective community problem. And so climate grief and climate anxiety are individual feelings. People feel them alone at their computer when they read the IPCC report, and you just feel awful. we really wanted to take that and turn that into climate possibility, and have people find a way to connect and feel like they could do something going forward.
Well, I'm an audience of one, but that all worked on me.
Yay!
For sure.
did it.
And after having the experience that we had in New York a couple weeks ago with Orange Days, the term that you gave in your show that was so applicable for us, I did seriously tell everybody, go watch the show. By the way, did I mention the cast? Amazing. But this is what I want to talk about now, actually, with both of you, is especially under the banner of this conversation, is can these images help us rewrite our future? Charlie, you mentioned some of the feedback that you get, people writing in and people who are maybe unable to travel to some of these places for whatever reason and what it does for them. Tell us more about what you hear from people, and if you think that the people who are watching these cameras, watching our wildlife, watching our animals interact in their natural habitat, do you think they're inspired to try to help protect those habitats after having those images?
Oh, I don't think. I know they are. People care when you think about your own life. You take care of, usually if you have a kid, it's a school, a church, your neighborhood. There was an issue up in Alaska, a big issue still is, Pebble Mine. And senators and governors would get so many letters from all the Explore fans because they care, because they're emotionally connected to the animals. We have this all the time where people write in and get involved. So it's not even a matter of thinking. Climate change is such a sophisticated term, and I like to use the term Sesame Street for adults a lot. Sometimes we have to rewire ourselves and think like we're two. I would tackle climate change differently, let's just say that, than other people, I think, in terms of trying to make it user-friendly versus so intimidating. And I think that's what the Explore cams do, and that's where we work so well with people like yourself who write extrapolations, is that I open hearts, and it's like bandwidth. And then we have a lot of live talks and conversations, and people can come in and talk about a myriad of topics. But sometimes I think if it's so heavy-handed, you just take cover and you surrender.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful balance, and I think everyone has their unique role. But we see it all the time. I mean, if I told you right now that, oh, an osprey died today, or an owl attacked an osprey nest, and two of the chicklets died, you'd be like, okay. But if you were watching it every day and you actually watched it happen, that really affects you. And that happens a lot on Explore. And I try to explain to people that nature isn't a Disney movie as much as we'd like it to be. We love it to be like Disney, but it isn't. But the fact that you care so much that this happened is a testament to you that this is working. So congratulations. And so just take those baby steps. That's how you're going to change your climate, is by like kind of developing from within a little bit. And that's not a spiritual revolution. I hear that word, I'm already throwing that out. That's just called you. That's called, like, we're all just human beings trying to make a difference and trying to figure out how to balance putting food on our table and taking care of our environment. And it's an incredible balance. So, but we see it every day. I wish I had the big fixes, like, Mr. Norton in episode 4 talking to the president. I don't, but at least these little steps, help.
Absolutely. And what about you? What do you hear from viewers in terms of what, on the other end of the spectrum, the type of imagery makes them want to do, the steps forward they want to take?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because I think, sort of like Explore.org, we get people who are already interested in the issue, and then we get people who are interested in Meryl Streep, and I think you can have people who, and I think that's what you get in the same way with a drama in some ways, is you do get that sort of heart first place, is, you don't have to want to watch a show about climate change, you just have to want, hopefully, a well-told, interesting drama. So for people who are in the climate space, the feedback that I've gotten is mostly just relief. I think for people who think about climate change all day long, it can feel infuriating to watch TV shows where that hasn't become the reality of the world on TV. It can feel alienating. Like, you go outside, the sky is orange. You go to the grocery store and, the food prices are affected because thousands of cattle died in Texas. You go, pick up your kid and they're having a hard time breathing. Like every part of your day has been affected by climate change. And then you go home and you turn on the television and it's snowing on the Christmas episode, but it's not snowing outside your window. And then you feel so disoriented and weird. So I think for people who are already thinking about it, the feedback that I've gotten has just been this huge sense of like, thank you. Because I think they feel like, I know this is going on, and I'm so gratified to see somebody portraying it in a way that felt real and immediate. For people who don't think about climate change, I think it is a bit of a bumpier ride because it's opening up this possibility of, oh, right, this is what, the air might feel like. Oh, this is what, food might be like. Oh, this is what, our lives might feel like. And that's not immediately pleasant to think about. But I think it also hopefully creates in them, and I have heard that it creates in the people I've talked to, a sense that they really want to do something. And I also just want to say, like, we made the show in 2020 and 2021. There have already been things that have happened that are better than our show reality had. Like the question that we were answering when we made the show is, what if we continued on 2020 patterns and didn't get any better? So and we talked to 1 million scientists and 1 million climate experts, and they sort of gave us our temperature targets and our parts per million target. And so we were building an imaginary world if we never were any better than we were in 2020. Well, we passed the IRA. Like, that didn't happen in extrapolations, and I think it's worth not stopping and patting ourselves in the back and like getting a burrito and giving up, but acknowledging that there have been steps already that mean that people are paying attention. We got Joe Manchin to sign a climate bill. What? That's weirder than anything in the show. Like, that is a bigger leap of imagination than anything that takes place when we're talking to whales. So I think, I think it's worth saying there are people who do care. There are things that are going on. And if this is the first time, if this show is the first time that this issue is coming to your consciousness, just to know that there are lots and lots of people working really hard already. And there are victories and there are successes and there are, green shoots, as much as there are also terrifying things and, people dropping dead in Texas heat waves and, nightmare weather scenarios. It's all happening at the same time. One doesn't negate the other. They're simultaneous.
Absolutely. We are going to get to audience questions pretty soon, so be thinking about them, and I'll come to you in just a minute. But you kind of just answered one of the places that I want to head to as we end to make it a little bit positive as Extrapolations ends and as Explore.org makes us feel, but which is what does give you hope in terms of media's intersection with climate change and what we can be doing to show those images? What makes you hopeful and not feel doomsday about it? Charlie, I'll start with you.
Media and hope. I'm sorry, but you should have an Ideas Festival on that. I've been staying here and I wake up at 8 in the morning and I hear these news feeds, media and hope. I mean, and then sponsored by your pharmaceuticals. So I'm going to just have to stop, right there, because it makes me want one. Hey, pass me. Anyways, we're on a journey. And there's two ways to look at it, half full, half empty. Either way, I'm a tram driver, and I just want you to know that anytime you're having a hard day, there's a bridge, and it's called Explore, and you can get on it. And I assure you, for that minute, you're going to be refilled with hope. And you go out back in life, and you're going to get beaten up again. It's called balance. And hopefully you're going to have more. This is on the smallest level, more wins than losses, but that's hope. You're in Aspen, Colorado. We're in a conference room with lights. Take a walk right outside this conference room. There's a beautiful stream. That's hope. Listen to those trees. That's hope. Say something nice to someone today. That's hope. So, that's a whole different thing, media and hope, because truthfully, it's a double-edged sword. It's like the modern day you know, it's a tricky thing. I mean, you're in the media, so we try to, like I said, we try to create an environment that celebrates purity. Purity is like Camelot and what is it, the Grail. You can't find that today. Find me a site that's truly pure, that doesn't want something from you, isn't asking you to give money. Why don't we ask to give money? Because most hardworking people don't have the opportunity to be in Aspen or different places, but they're the greatest. So let's just go. To me, the median hope is starting with the basics, and that's all I can really, part with questions is we're all going to have bad days. I mean, I woke up the grumpiest bear this morning. I think one of the ladies right there said, "Hey, how you feeling?" There was a talk, delight, not yet. I got to go jump in the river. Bear needs to jump or go for a swim, and then you'll get delight. So what I'm getting at is, if you go in that room for a few minutes and you're having a rough time, that's what we're here for. We're here for you. Really, that's what Explore is about. We're here for you and anyone else who's having a rough day. If median hope isn't working, then come to Explore, pass the bridge, go back out in the real world, and that's our role. That's my hope, is people just enjoy it.
Dorothy,
Paid audience.
Dorothy, what about you?
I mean, I think, and I alluded to this before, I think for a long time, again, because of a very successful paid campaign, the conversation around climate change was a controversial conversation. They covered it as a controversy. So the media conversation around climate change was like, do you believe in it or not believe in it? Like it's the Easter Bunny. And that is not a great way to talk about something that's unfolding before our eyes and impacting our lives, let alone our future. I do feel cautiously hopeful that we have turned the corner on the sort of Easter Bunny conversation, and we've started to go like climate change is real, which is like the lowest bar, but we did it. And then, but I do think that acknowledgement doesn't necessarily presuppose any particular set of politics or any particular set of solutions. So I think there is a lot of good, complicated, fruitful, intense debate and discussion to be had once we admit this thing that's happening is happening. I don't know that it's going great, but I'm glad that we at least have the possibility to do that. I'll also just say for my little corner of the media universe, which is Hollywood screenwriters, we are currently on strike, so no one's writing anything. But I have, over the last couple years, become somebody who I do workshops and I go to panels and I do things and I try to talk about climate change and storytelling as much as I can. And I get a million emails after every talk I do from writers, especially younger writers, going like, oh my gosh, I have this climate change, fish out of water workplace comedy where like a coal miner is getting retrained as a solar engineer. And I'm like, great, like let me help you with your pitch. So I always try to just help and mentor writers who want to tell climate stories, and I feel like there is now a real hunger and excitement around climate storytelling in Hollywood. So whenever we are able to come to an agreement on the strike and get the terms that we need to go back to work, I'm excited to see what those stories will be.
Yeah, and you mentioned when we were talking prior that so many different types of stories can be climate stories.
Oh my gosh, if any of you are writers, I just am pitching this to you because this is not my field, but please do a Hallmark Christmas climate story. The girl's parents run a ski resort, but this year there's no snow, so they're bringing her back to try to have to sell it, but then her hometown old boyfriend is the realtor. Please, someone, every genre can be a climate change story. You can do mystery, you can do, horror, sexy, whatever. It's all happening in climate change.
Oh my gosh, that's great. And helps just get the message to more people in more places.
Yes, please.
Absolutely. Okay, let's open it up to audience questions. I know we're going to have some. A mic will come around, so please just wait for that so we can hear you. I'll get to you next.
Check. Hey. Baratunde Thurston here. I am so excited about this conversation. Thank you. I host a podcast called How to Citizen and a TV series called America Outdoors, where we hide climate stories in people's relationship with nature. I have suggestions masquerading as questions. I'm transparent. We need that. For Explore.org, Merging what Dorothy shared about her office Fox News assault, airports are media assault zones. We go through them and we're hit with sports or news, and there's someone in this building, maybe the person whose name is on it, who can get you a distribution licensing deal to take over the TVs in airports.
Wow.
And let us watch manatees
Bears on
instead of
airports.
mansions.
Bears in airports. Put the bears in the airports, not on the planes.
Bearports. Boom.
Bearports. Bearports.
We're
we did it.
workshopping.
We did it. Bearports. Bearports.
violate
Yeah, we just,
the-
yeah.
Okay.
That was
And-
illegal.
And then for extrapolations, I love how you grounded your future world in such hard science. Is there a possible project of grounding, not if we don't do anything, but if we did everything we could? And what is the reasonable but slightly beyond reasonable future we could look forward to if we get our shit together?
Yeah, I love that. All I want to do is a story where the good guys win. Because it's Hollywood, right? Like, we should do a story where the good guys win. And I feel like you're totally right. Like, that is a lack in the climate world, and it's a lack of imagination, and I think there's a fear of, for a while we've been in this place where like everything has to be gritty and dark and anti-heroes, and like even Batman is bad, and like, okay, but what if Batman was good, and what if we fix climate change on a better timetable than we think we might? I think you're totally right, and I think there's a way to do that story that doesn't make us feel complacent. But in fact makes us feel like we want to sign up. We talk all the time about World War II movies, and I think there is a thing that you get, in the best World War II movies that makes you feel like you want to sign up. You want to be a part of that. You saw something amazing that was a huge, difficult challenge, but oh my gosh, the good guys did it. And I think there's a real space and possibility and opportunity for a climate story that makes people feel that way.
Oh. It's a great comparison.
Thank you.
Right here.
Hi, Bill Resnick. Great to hear both of you. I'm wondering, in this very competitive media environment with lots of content, both on the web and on TV, who you're targeting and how you're targeting that audience.
I think it really depends on the project. So I think for extrapolations, it's on Apple TV, which has a particular demographic subscriber base. And I think in that conversation, we knew we wanted to reach the other fans of Apple science fiction shows, because they had built sort of a library and a bit of a name for themselves in the science fiction space. And so we were hoping to sort of go like, hey, you're already on Apple, you're already paying for this service. What about watching this other science fiction show? And then in addition, we had partnerships with a lot of nonprofits that are focused on climate, where we sort of did a promotion for the show and say, hey, you're already interested in this issue. How about we give you, a month free Apple subscription so you can check it out? So I think it sort of depends, what your network is, how you target that.
This is a question for me.
Yes.
Well, Explore doesn't have a marketing team, so we target just people who have a curiosity, and our mantra is never stop learning. I'm really proud to say that it started as a primary website, and people on the website are older, and like our Facebook pages have over 10 million, 20 million people combined, and so it's really a robust community. And I like to joke, I call our Explore page Insta Geezer, because that's the older audience. But it really is. I mean, it's amazing how big it is. But what's happened over the years is like we're now over 1 million people on TikTok, almost 1 million people on Instagram, closing in on 180,000 on Twitter. And so we've really reached a wide variety of different ages. So we reach the spectrum of people who want to learn. And I think when you say target, I think that's my favorite thing about Explore is it's for everyone, because nature's for everyone. And what happens with the animals is you can go in any classroom anywhere in the world, and you're going to notice something. Why are there drawings of animals that kids have never seen in any country? Because they're actually deities. It's a much higher level thing. And so this becomes a common ground where people can speak. But I love your idea, and I love, in terms of growth, we're just a lifeboat in the middle of the Atlantic. This Explore team is really small and dedicated. We try to keep things small so we can focus on just trying to impact the human condition and not, we don't get into celebrity currency. We don't have any stars on Explore, because when they want to be on it, then they want something else. It's like, if your heart's in it, get on the boat. If your heart's not in it, do what you love. It's really simple. And so our target is for whoever feels drawn to it. And that's why I got a kick when she said, oh, we watched Explore on the Bear Cam. I'm like, well, how'd you know about it?
That was awesome. Yes, right here. Mike's coming your way. Yes, right here.
Hi, thank you both. Charles, have you thought about working with children and families? I think your work is so connecting, inspiring, and healing. And we are now in a mental health crisis as well. And there couldn't be anything better than children and families sharing nature and animals. So, what are you doing?
What now? I love that. It's life. Originally, when you set sail, you're so ambitious and you have so many ideas, and that's why I'm, thankful to the Aspen Institute and to Cindy Kennard for putting this together, because I'd always wanted to do more of these live exhibits where people can escape the urban squalor, and not just that, for hospitals, kids, airports, but because our team is so small and because there's so much levels of bureaucracy, I haven't done it. But just this morning I got up and it was from, I don't know if you saw it, Candace, this beautiful letter from a school teacher, 5th grade, and I don't know how she gets it, and she's just thanking us so much for Explore. And I agree, it's such a great vehicle, and that's why we're here at an Ideas thing, and if we could meet the right people who know how to facilitate these things. I know that City is I can already feel her brain powers going, what are we gonna do? So, I'm gonna be back in the cave in about 5 minutes. You can find me over there. I'll be back in the cave hiding, so. But yes, I agree with you, and thank you. And if you have suggestions, we're here. Well, yeah.
Yes, let's get you a mic just so that the live feed can hear it as well.
So I am Cindy Kennard, as Charlie just acknowledged, and thank you. I think a lot about your show, and I think a lot about our country, able to digest and connect with an issue, right? And one of the best things that was probably ever done for the gay rights movement was, philanthropy, by the way, funded a campaign because they finally decided that the coming to the head on this argument was not working, so you had to go to the heart. And Haas Foundation and many others funded that. When I look at Explore, and I'm not saying this because we work together, but it's not scary at all, and it doesn't make me go, I don't want to hear this anymore because I'm really afraid. I don't see that campaign for climate change or that thread in this country yet, that sort of makes it not so scary, not so, oh my God, we're all going to die. It's an extremely important issue, don't get me wrong the way I'm saying this, but where is that campaign to win the hearts of America on this issue? So that it's not so, it feels like, I know I'm thinking the whole time, how can Explore?
Yeah, I think how climate change messaging works is in a sort of in the nonprofit space, and how people are talking about it. I think it's a good question. I would say for me, I don't think all climate content should be apocalyptic. And I think we tried really hard in Extrapolations to not make it the end of the world. One thing we all learned during COVID is things can be really bad and also really normal. And you can go on with your daily life and do things and get used to things that you never thought you would get used to. And if someone described them to you, you'd be like, I would never get used to that. And then you get used to it. And I think that's a challenge with climate change, is trying to talk about, there will be changes. We will have to get used to things we don't want to, but there also are a lot of possibilities and joy. For me, just speaking as me, I don't think a form of climate communication that is just, we're all doomed, is a great message. I would not encourage philanthropists to send money to people who are in the line of communicating that we're doomed. I don't think we're doomed. I think we are undoomed. But I also think you can fail without being doomed. So I think it's worth noting that we still have choices and possibilities. That's why I brought up World War II. If I ran the climate messaging philanthropy world, I would say this is a big challenge. we are awesome, capable, smart, hardworking people. Let's go meet the big challenge that is in front of us, you know, and let's come together and let's find some heroism and some valor and some glory in tackling a very complicated, hard thing. I think we can do it, but I don't think it's going to be easy. And I'm so grateful for Explore, and I'm so grateful for the Bear Cam, and I think you need that, but I think you also need, you know, you need both. You need to be inspired and to know who you're fighting for. And, you know, you need to have your like girl back home, right? Who's your bear that you go out and you fight the battle for. But you also need to have sort of the resolve and the courage and the conviction to engage in those complicated conversations and those difficult choices.
Absolutely. Well, let's take one last question because we are just running out of time right now.
Deloitte, it's specifically on its nature-related services and sustainability, and I've been in this space for over 10 years. And what we're seeing, right, I know there was a really interesting article in Bloomberg a couple of weeks ago saying, you know, that nature versus climate, and that nature is more of a lingo that we could use and a word that we can use that could bring us together. So thinking about it, right, climate is not separate from nature, and humans are not separate from nature. I would love to get your take on how could we really use nature to bring us together and use wonderful things as Explore, because I saw it there, to really create those feelings and accountability for all of us.
Charlie, you want to take that?
I'm not really sure what
Nature cams.
What is the exact question? Because I got nature bring. You know, I'm just here at the Ideas Festival trying to get new ideas. I want to first start. Sesame Street for adults starts the tram driver. He thinks he's driving. I got 2-year-olds, you know, adults who want to feel like they're 2. But I think that, you know, accountability just starts, everything starts with baby steps. I think the moment we overwhelm ourselves, we hide. You know?
Yeah.
I could do a whole other talk on climate change. I have a whole different way of how I'd handle it. So that's a whole other panel. But what it really, everything starts with simplicity. You know, simplicity is complexity in disguise. The simplest act in the world, the most complicated act in the world is to keep something simple. And the simplest act in the world is to complicate something. It's so easy. And so when you say accountability through nature, and I've listened to the headphones outside at your booth, and it's peaceful. And you know, when you walk around and you hear the leaves rustling, and you know, I'm a huge fan of dogs. You see Dog Bless You is a whole other division of Explore. Those little acts have a lot of needlepoint going on. They're building tapestries. And so I haven't really figured it out, because the human mind is really resistant to change. It's not easy. So that's why I go for little victories and add them up versus bigger things. I wish I had more time to work with people. Like, that's why it's been a great honor to be here at the Aspen Ideas and just to say hello to whoever came, because when you do hide behind a computer screen, you are kind of hidden. And so just having this opportunity to hear all your comments and suggestions, it gets my mind thinking, hence ideas. So thank you all again. And I'll be in the Zen room, in the Bear Cave. In the Bear Cave, you talk to you later.
Dorothy and Charlie, thank you both so much. Go watch Extrapolations if you haven't, and happy bear watching now that we're in season. Thanks, everybody.